Okay, so get this right. Imagine India in 2047, not just as a rising power, but like a fully developed nation
Wow.
celebrating a century of independence.
Yeah.
That's the vision, right? And that's the incredible vision outlined in this book, India's Mission 2047, becoming a developed nation. And that's what we're diving into today.
And what's really fascinating about this vision is it's not just about, hitting a certain GDP number.
Right.
It really lays out a roadmap for like a complete transformation.
Yeah.
Touching on everything from infrastructure and technology to social progress and global leadership.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And it's not just for people who are super into policy.
Right.
This is something that if you're just interested in the future and where the world's going.
Absolutely.
This is a plan that you want to know about.
Yeah, this is like a sneak peek into the future, right?
Yeah.
Of what India is trying to achieve.
So we're going to try to break down this massive plan, right? And explore the 6 key pillars that they've identified.
Yeah.
And these are everything from reaching a $10 trillion economy to building these smart cities and even aiming for a spot on the UN Security Council, right? I mean, this is ambitious.
It's incredibly ambitious, yeah.
So how interconnected are all these pillars? I mean, can you give us an example of how they all sort of play together?
Well, I mean, if you look at technology and social progress, right?
Right.
Just imagine advancements in telehealth that can bring quality healthcare to even the most remote villages.
Yeah.
Right? You're not only improving lives, but you're also boosting overall productivity.
Right.
So that's just one way that technology can really drive both economic and social growth.
So it's not just about building stuff. It's about actually improving people's lives.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's start with that economic transformation then.
Sure.
So they're talking about doubling their current GDP, which would require a growth rate of 8 to 9% every year.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge leap, right?
Yeah.
How are they planning to actually achieve that?
So they're really looking at specific sectors, right, that they believe hold the most potential.
Okay.
And of course, everyone knows, India's IT sector, it's booming.
Right.
But they're aiming to go beyond just services, right?
Yeah.
They actually want to become a global leader in areas like artificial intelligence and machine learning.
So it's not just they're using AI, but they're developing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So think about developing cutting-edge AI solutions, not just implementing them.
So it's kind of like you're saying, we're not just the back office anymore. We're the innovators.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But what about manufacturing? So I remember Make in India.
Mm-hmm.
This was it was a big thing a few years back.
Yeah.
Is that still part of this plan?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Make in India is back, but it's with a more strategic focus this time, right?
Okay.
So they're targeting specific sectors where they believe they can become global leaders.
So it's not just Make in India anything.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
It's very specific things.
Yeah, and take renewable energy, for instance.
Okay.
So imagine India becoming the go-to source for solar panels, wind turbines, not just for their needs,
Right.
but for the entire world.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of ambitious thinking that's underpinning this whole plan.
That's really interesting. And I feel like that kind of ties in with the sustainable development, right?
Absolutely.
It's not just about growth at any cost. It's about making sure that growth is environmentally responsible.
Exactly. And that's a key aspect that really sets it apart from previous plans.
Yeah.
They're not shying away from the challenges of climate change at all.
Yeah.
They're actually integrating those solutions into their growth strategy.
And they're making it a part of their economic growth.
Exactly.
So it's not just a side thing.
No, it's front and center.
Yeah, okay.
So think about massive investments in solar and wind energy, right?
Yeah.
Making India a leader in that global fight against climate change.
Right.
But at the same time, creating jobs, attracting investment.
So it's they're turning a challenge into an opportunity, right?
Exactly.
Which is pretty smart.
Yeah.
Speaking of smart, let's get to those smart cities.
Okay.
Right. So India's cities are already bursting at the seams. How does this plan address that?
They're proposing a complete overhaul with these smart cities, right?
Okay.
So think about a city that can respond to problems in real time, right? Using data to manage everything from traffic to waste collection.
Yeah.
So imagine sensors detecting a water leak.
Okay.
And automatically dispatching a repair crew before it even becomes a major issue.
So it's not just about fancy buildings.
No.
It's about using the technology to make the city like actually livable and efficient.
Exactly.
But let's be honest, India is a vast country.
Okay.
A lot of people live outside of the major cities.
Absolutely.
So what about rural development?
The plan recognizes that,
Uh-huh.
right? They're talking about a transportation revolution, connecting the entire country with modern and efficient infrastructure.
So what does that look like?
So think about like high-speed rail lines, right? Crisscrossing the nation, upgraded highways reaching even the most remote villages,
Yeah.
affordable air travel connecting smaller towns.
So they're really trying to create like a network that brings opportunities to everybody.
Exactly, to everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I mean, all of this development needs people, right?
absolutely.
What about education and healthcare?
So that's where the social progress pillar comes in, right?
Okay.
They're aiming for universal access to quality education by 2047, which is, I mean, that's a huge, huge undertaking.
Yeah, that's huge.
So imagine every child in India, regardless of background, location, having access to world-class education
Yeah.
and being equipped with the skills they need to thrive in like the 21st century.
That's a really powerful vision.
It is.
And it sounds like they're taking a similar approach to healthcare.
Absolutely.
Right.
So they're working towards universal healthcare coverage also by 2047, using a combination of like expanded insurance programs, more health centers, and like innovative digital health solutions.
So give us an example of that. Like, what would that look like?
So imagine being able to like consult with a specialist
Yeah.
from a village that's like hundreds of miles away just through your mobile phone.
Oh, wow.
Right.
So that's really using technology to solve a real problem.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
But India also wants to be like, a global player, like a leader on the world stage.
Yeah.
So how do they plan to achieve that?
So they're setting some pretty ambitious goals there as well.
Okay.
They're aiming for a permanent seat on the UN Security Council,
Right.
a leading role in the G20, and they're looking to leverage their growing military and economic strength to become a voice for developing nations.
Okay, so they're not just playing catch up.
No, they want to shape the future.
They want to be, setting the agenda. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's fascinating, but we got to talk about the challenges too, right?
Sure.
No plan is perfect.
Of course not.
And India faces some pretty big obstacles on this path,
Yeah.
right? I'm talking about things like, income inequality,
Right.
unemployment, even climate change.
Climate change, yeah.
How does the plan even begin to address those sorts of things?
Well, I mean, they're not shying away from these issues at all.
Okay.
The plan very clearly acknowledges these challenges,
Okay.
and it even outlines strategies to address them.
So it's not just like, oh, yeah, we know these problems exist.
Yeah.
It's like, here's what we're going to do about it.
Exactly.
Wow.
So, for example, they're looking at targeted poverty alleviation programs,
Right.
skill development initiatives
Yeah.
to create jobs,
Yeah.
massive investments in renewable energy to really combat climate change.
So, I mean, it sounds like they're taking a realistic approach, right? Like recognizing the hurdles, but not letting that, stop them from their vision.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, realistically, can they really achieve all of this?
That's the big question, right?
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so interesting.
Right.
Because it's not just about like the government's ability to implement these plans, right?
Right.
It's about the active participation of 1.4 billion people,
Wow.
right? It's a collective effort.
It's like everybody's got to be on board.
Yeah, it's a shared vision for a future that's both, prosperous and equitable.
That's what they're going for.
That's the goal.
Yeah. And that's what we're going to, explore a little bit further in our next deep dive.
Exactly.
We're going to take a closer look at each of these 6 pillars, look at the potential roadblocks, and really analyze India's chances of actually pulling this off. So stay tuned.
Sounds good.
Welcome back to our deep dive into India's Mission 2047. So last time we sort of laid out like the grand vision, right?
Right.
A fully developed India by 2047. And now I kind of want to zoom in on how they plan to hit that ambitious $10 trillion economy.
Yeah, it's a huge goal.
It's huge.
But what I find really fascinating is they're not just relying on like traditional economic engines, right?
Why?
They're also looking at some really cutting-edge strategies to get there.
Like what? Give us the inside scoop.
Well, okay, so take their booming IT sector, for instance.
Yeah, everybody knows about that.
Right, exactly.
Right.
But they're not content with just being like a service provider anymore.
Right.
They're aiming to become a global leader in fields like artificial intelligence and cybersecurity.
So instead of just implementing AI solutions developed like in other places,
Mm-hmm.
they want to be the ones creating them.
Exactly. They want to be setting the trends, not just following them.
That's a pretty bold move.
It is.
But what about like, I mean, we've been talking about all this high-tech stuff, but what about like traditional industries like manufacturing?
Sure.
Is there still a place for like, make in India in this whole vision?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Make in India is definitely back,
Mm-hmm.
but with like, I think, a more strategic focus this time around.
So what does that look like?
So they're targeting specific sectors, right?
Okay.
Where they believe they can actually become global leaders.
So instead of trying to be like everything to everyone,
Yeah, exactly.
they're picking their battles.
Precisely.
Okay.
And, a great example of that is renewable energy equipment, right?
Okay.
So they see huge potential for growth there
Mm-hmm.
and global competitiveness.
Right.
So imagine like India becoming the world's leading supplier of solar panels and wind turbines.
That would be huge.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the ambitious thinking that's driving this plan.
So it's like they're turning this global challenge, the need for clean energy,
Right.
into like a massive economic opportunity for themselves.
Exactly.
That's pretty clever.
Yeah.
But it's not just about manufacturing, right?
No, not at all.
I mean, they're also looking at modernizing their agricultural sector through technology.
Yeah, using technology in really interesting ways.
So I've heard this term agritech thrown around.
Mm-hmm.
What does that actually look like in practice? Like, what are they doing?
So imagine like a farmer in a remote village, right?
Yeah.
Using a smartphone app to monitor soil conditions,
Okay.
optimize irrigation,
Wow.
and even connect directly with buyers.
So it's really about like empowering those farmers
Exactly.
with technology
Yeah, giving them the tools.
to increase their yields, their incomes.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that also ties into making agriculture more efficient and sustainable,
Right, which is so crucial,
which is really important.
especially in a country that's facing, the challenges of climate change.
Exactly. Yeah. And speaking of climate change, I mean, one of the most striking aspects of this whole plan is its emphasis on sustainable development.
It's a key theme throughout.
Right. It's not just about economic growth. It's about making sure that growth is environmentally responsible.
And that's, I think, a key differentiator, right?
Okay.
For India's vision.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not just talking about reducing their carbon footprint.
Right.
They're aiming to become a global leader in this fight against climate change.
So how are they planning to do that? Like, what are some of the concrete things they're talking about?
Well, for one, they're making these massive investments in renewable energy sources
Okay.
like solar and wind power.
Mm-hmm.
And they really want to create this green economy, right?
Yeah.
That generates jobs, attracts investment, and reduces their reliance on those fossil fuels.
So it's like a win-win-win.
Exactly.
Right. They get clean energy, economic growth, and a healthier environment.
Precisely.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
But they're not stopping there.
Right.
They're also looking at these innovative solutions for urban development, particularly with those smart cities we touched on earlier.
We did.
Remind us what's so smart about these cities.
So think about like a city that uses data and technology to manage everything, right?
Oh.
So from traffic flow to waste collection to even emergency response.
Yeah.
Right. So imagine sensors that are detecting a water leak
Right.
and then automatically dispatching a repair crew.
Wow.
Right. Or a traffic management system that's adjusting traffic lights in real time
Yeah.
to try to avoid congestion.
So it's not just about like, having fancy buildings and technology.
Yeah.
It's about using that technology to make the city more livable and efficient.
Exactly.
And I'm guessing they're thinking about sustainability too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So incorporating like green building practices, renewable energy sources, and efficient public transport systems.
So it's about creating cities that are both modern and sustainable.
Exactly.
But I mean, all of this sounds very expensive.
It is. Yeah.
How are they even planning to finance this massive transformation?
That is the key question, right?
Mhm.
So they're exploring all sorts of different avenues, including attracting foreign investment,
Yeah.
leveraging public-private partnerships,
Mm-hmm.
and even issuing green bonds to finance these sustainable development projects.
So they're thinking about like how to pay for this whole thing.
Yeah, they're getting creative with their financing strategies.
Yeah, and it's not just about money, right? They also need the human capital to make all of this, to make this vision a reality.
Absolutely.
So what about education and healthcare?
Well, those are absolutely crucial pillars of this whole plan. And, they're aiming for that universal access to quality education by 2047.
Right.
Which, as we said before, is a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
Right? But imagine every child in India, right?
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of their background, their location, having access to world-class education, being equipped with the skills they need to really thrive in the 21st century.
And so it's really about giving everybody that opportunity to succeed.
Exactly.
No matter where they come from.
Yeah.
That's really powerful.
It is.
And it sounds like they're taking a similar approach with healthcare.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, they're working towards universal healthcare coverage also by 2047.
Okay.
Using, a combination of those expanded insurance programs, more health centers, and those digital health solutions that we talked about.
Yeah.
Like imagine being able to consult with a specialist, from a village hundreds of miles away just through your phone.
Yeah, and that's really, making quality healthcare accessible to everyone, even in like the most remote areas.
And it's not just focusing on physical health either, right?
Right.
They're also addressing like mental health and well-being.
Interesting.
Recognizing that
Right.
that a healthy population is a productive population.
Yeah, so it's like a holistic
It's very holistic.
approach to development, recognizing that human capital is like the foundation for economic growth.
Precisely.
And it sounds like they're really trying to be inclusive with this, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Like they're looking to empower women in marginalized communities, making sure that everybody has that opportunity to participate in and benefit from this whole transformation.
Creating a much more inclusive and equitable society.
Yeah, but all of this, all of this progress that they're talking about is happening against like a backdrop of some pretty serious challenges.
Right. There were definitely hurdles to overcome.
I mean, we've mentioned income inequality.
We've talked about employment.
Right.
But there's got to be more.
There's climate change.
Right.
There's social inequality. I mean, these are all issues that could derail their plans if they're not addressed effectively.
So what are they actually doing to try to tackle these challenges?
Well, I mean, for one, they're implementing these targeted poverty alleviation programs, investing in skill development to create jobs, and they're adopting this multi-pronged approach to combat climate change.
So it's like they're recognizing the challenges.
Yes.
But they're also like developing concrete strategies to try to overcome them.
And recognizing that sustainable development isn't just this like environmental issue.
Right.
It's also an economic and a social imperative.
Yeah, I mean they're weaving sustainability into like every aspect of their plan.
Exactly.
From energy production to urban planning to agriculture.
It's all connected. And they're not just, looking inward. They're also aiming to become like a global leader in technology and innovation.
Absolutely.
So it's like they're trying to shape the future on a global scale. And that's where things get really exciting.
Yeah.
So what are some of the technological advancements that they're pursuing?
Well, they're building a digital infrastructure that's second to none.
Okay.
Expanding high-speed internet access, rolling out 5G and even 6G networks.
I mean, imagine the possibilities that will unlock.
It's incredible, and they're not just building the infrastructure. They're also investing heavily in research and development.
Okay.
They want to be at the forefront of fields like artificial intelligence, green technology, and biotechnology.
So we're talking like, AI-powered farms, personalized medicine, green hydrogen production.
It's like stepping into the future.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing, and they're not forgetting about space exploration.
No, not at all.
Right.
ISRO, India's space agency, has already achieved some really remarkable things.
Yeah.
And they're planning even more ambitious missions, including manned missions to the moon and Mars.
Wow.
So it's really about pushing the boundaries of human knowledge and technological capability.
But it's not just about like, exploring the cosmos,
Right.
right? It's about using space technology to solve real-world problems here on Earth.
Exactly, yeah.
So what are some examples of that?
So think about Earth observation, right?
Oh, okay.
For disaster management,
Hmm.
satellite-based internet for remote areas,
Wow.
and even using space-based technologies to improve agricultural practices.
So they're really trying to bring the benefits of space exploration down to Earth.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's not just technology for its own sake.
No, it's about using technology as a tool
Right.
to address those social challenges, improve people's lives, and create a more equitable and sustainable society.
And that's really the heart of it, right?
I think so.
Yeah, it's a vision that's both ambitious and inspiring.
It really is.
But as we've discussed, I mean, there are significant challenges ahead.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And in our next deep dive, we'll take a closer look at those challenges.
Yeah.
Analyze India's chances of actually achieving this ambitious vision.
We'll really get into the nitty-gritty
Yeah.
of whether this is, a realistic and sustainable plan in the long run.
So stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive into India's Mission 2047. All right, so welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into India's Mission 2047.
It's been quite a journey.
It has, right? We've explored their ambitious goals. We've talked about their innovative strategies and just the sheer scale of their vision, right? But now I want to get real.
Yeah.
Can they actually pull this off?
That's the million-dollar question,
Yeah.
right? And as we've sort of touched on throughout this whole deep dive,
Right.
India faces some pretty formidable obstacles on this path to becoming a developed nation.
Yeah. And we've talked about income inequality.
Right.
We've talked about unemployment, the need to bridge the gap between urban and rural areas.
Absolutely.
But what are some of the other challenges that could really stand in their way?
Well, one major concern is social inequality.
Okay.
I mean, caste-based discrimination is still a reality for millions of Indians.
Right.
So how do you create a truly developed nation
Yeah.
when so many people are held back simply because of their birth?
It's a really deep-rooted issue, right?
It is.
And it will require more than just, economic growth to solve.
Absolutely. It's about addressing those systemic barriers that prevent marginalized communities from really accessing education, healthcare, economic opportunities.
So it's about creating that level playing field
It's exactly.
for everybody.
Yeah, and it's not just about social equality.
Right.
They also need to tackle, those environmental challenges that we talked about.
Right.
I mean, India is already facing the impacts of climate change.
Yeah.
From those extreme weather events to rising sea levels.
And let's not forget about the air pollution
Oh, absolutely.
in
Yeah.
some of their major cities.
Right.
I mean, it's a public health crisis.
Yeah, and these are all interconnected issues, right?
Right.
So climate change can actually exacerbate poverty and inequality.
Wow.
And environmental degradation can really undermine economic growth.
So it's like this complex web
It is a complex web.
of challenges that they need to navigate.
And they need to do it while also managing, rapid population growth,
Right.
urbanization, and technological disruption.
So it's a tall order,
It's a very, very tall order.
to say the least.
But the plan does acknowledge these challenges, right?
Right.
They're not shying away from the difficult questions.
So what are some of the key strategies that they're proposing to address these challenges?
Well, they're investing heavily in education and skill development,
Okay.
recognizing that a skilled workforce is absolutely essential for a thriving economy.
Yay.
They're also, expanding access to healthcare, improving sanitation, and implementing those social safety nets to protect the most vulnerable.
So it's really about building a more resilient
Yeah.
and equitable society.
Exactly.
And I'm guessing, climate change is a big part of this as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Right.
So they're taking this proactive approach
Okay.
to climate change, investing in renewable energy,
Mm-hmm.
promoting sustainable agriculture,
Right.
and implementing policies to really reduce pollution.
So it's about recognizing that environmental sustainability is not just a moral imperative,
Right.
but it's an economic necessity.
It's essential for their future.
Yeah, and they're also, looking at the issue of governance,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, so they're working to streamline bureaucracy,
Okay.
improve transparency, and combat corruption.
So, I mean, these are all crucial steps,
Yeah,
but ultimately the success of this plan, it depends on more than just, government policies.
absolutely.
It requires the active participation of 1.4 billion people.
That's really the key point here, right? This is not just a top-down initiative.
Right.
It's about empowering individuals, communities, businesses
Yeah.
to really contribute to this shared vision.
So it's really about a collective effort,
Yeah.
like a national movement
National movement.
towards development.
Exactly. And it's about fostering that sense of ownership and responsibility.
Yeah.
Everyone has a role to play in making this vision a reality.
I mean, it's inspiring to see such ambition and determination. But realistically, like what are their chances of success?
Well, it's impossible to predict the future with any certainty.
Of course.
But I think there are reasons to be both optimistic and cautious.
Okay, so give me the optimistic side first.
All right. So India has this young and dynamic population.
Right.
A growing middle class
Mm-hmm.
and just a vibrant entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, they've always been known for that.
And they've already made significant progress
Mm-hmm.
in recent decades, right?
Right.
Lifting millions out of poverty,
Mm-hmm.
becoming a global economic power.
So they have a track record
They do.
of success.
And they've shown this willingness to embrace innovation
Right.
and really adapt to change.
Okay, but what about the cautious side?
Well, the cautious side is that, some of these challenges that we talked about,
Yeah.
they're deeply entrenched.
Right.
Social inequality, corruption, environmental degradation.
Mm-hmm.
These are not easy problems to solve.
They're really tough problems.
And they require this sustained effort
Mm-hmm.
and political will.
And there's also, we've been talking about like the internal challenges.
Right.
But there are external factors too
Of course.
that could impact their progress.
Absolutely.
Things like global economic downturns
Yeah.
or even like, geopolitical instability.
Those are definitely valid concerns.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I believe that India's success will depend on their ability to maintain focus,
Okay.
to adapt to those changing circumstances,
Mm-hmm.
and most importantly, to really engage their citizens
Right.
in this collective effort.
So it's about fostering that sense of shared purpose
Yeah.
and national unity.
Exactly, and it's about inspiring a belief that a better future is actually possible.
I like that. And so as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with one question for you, dear listener.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Is India's Mission 2047 achievable?
What opportunities and challenges do you see on the horizon?
We encourage you to explore the full text of India's Mission 2047.
Yeah, dive into it.
Yeah, and draw your own conclusions.
Yeah, because whether or not they hit every single target,
Mm-hmm.
the very act of embarking on this journey is a testament to their determination
Yeah.
to shape a brighter future for themselves and for the world.
And that's a story worth watching unfold.
Absolutely, and thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time, ready to explore another fascinating corner of our ever-changing world.